Hello everybody, I'm Dr. Tim Chrisman, chiropractor and functional nutritionist, coming at you today with crucial information about one very important set of nutrients that's necessary in avoiding our top metabolic problems today: cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and obesity, and to boil it all down, inflammation. We're talking about essential fatty acids. If you've been awake at all in the last few decades, you know that a lot has been said about this topic. That omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids are essential, meaning we can't make them in the body, so we have to eat them, and that we primarily push omega-3s in the form of fish oils because of such a widespread deficiency and their important role in mediating inflammation. So why am I talking about this topic right now? I mean, we've been bombarded by it all over the news. Products are readily available everywhere, and your doctor might even talk about it in reference to heart health and your cholesterol levels. In fact, omega-3 fatty acids are one of the very few nutrients your medical doctor may even give you in a prescription form. Vitamin D3 is another. But it's so important to health that even the medical industry has embraced prescribing nutrition. Just 1 gram of omega-3 daily can reduce your triglycerides about 10% in just 2 to 3 weeks. And yet there is a disconnect between what we know and what we do, between our knowledge and our behavior and our real health outcomes. In spite of all our knowledge, there's still a crisis in America with approximately 65% of adults and up to 95% of children that have inadequate levels of omega-3 fatty acids. This means that 95% of our children don't have vital nutrients necessary for proper development. Apart from our overload of chemical toxins, which is also at a crucial point, this helps explain why autism spectrum disorders and other cognitive and learning disabilities have sharply risen over the last few decades. Omega-3s are important during developmental years and later stages of life for brain development and repair. But if we pivot to the subject of weight management, to say that we're overfed and undernourished is an understatement of epic proportions, as demonstrated also by our rates of overweight and obesity. In 1980, only 13% of the American population was obese, 34% in 2008, and then finally today in 2024, an astounding 42% is obese, with an average rate of about 20% in children. If you want to reduce healthcare costs, start addressing this problem on a grassroots level, because eventually all of these people are going to need more and more medical care if something doesn't change. It's been proven in weight loss studies that people with a healthy essential fatty acid balance lose more weight, and they lose it faster when all other factors are the same. If you're experiencing weight loss, resistance, or can't seem to move forward with healthier body composition, you could benefit from testing to see where the balance is, and then diet modification and supplementation to correct the imbalance. Later in the video, I'm going to talk about a very easy, inexpensive test that you can do at home. Some conditions which involve fatty acid imbalance are depression, skin irritation, dry eyes, joint and muscle stiffness and pain, cardiovascular disease, hair texture and health, weight management, reproductive health, autoimmunity, neurological, developmental, and degenerative conditions. Before we get into some other numbers, a very simplistic way of looking at these individual fatty acids is omega-6 are viewed as inflammatory, and omega-3 are viewed as anti-inflammatory, roughly. I say roughly because some of the omega-6 fatty acids, such as GLA or gamma-linolenic acid, have anti-inflammatory properties. GLA is one of those that's not promoted as much, but you can get it in oils such as black currant seed, evening primrose, and borage. It's very helpful to supplement if you have dry skin, lowered immunity, faulty fat metabolism, and for women who have rough periods or menopausal issues. What we're looking for overall is a balance between inflammatory and anti-inflammatory processes. Both sides of the equation are equally important for our survival. And we use fatty acid ratios as one way of understanding this, because fatty acids go downstream in our chemistry to create or inhibit inflammation, and knowing the relative amounts of each helps us to determine what side of the inflammatory discussion we favor. When measured in the blood, ratios range between 1:1 and 4:1 omega-6 to omega-3 are ideal. That means Our omega-6 can be up to 3 or 4 times more than the omega-3 levels and still be acceptable. The monumental problem with this, however, and the reason why we talk about it so much, is that our eating behavior and our food choices create a preponderance of omega-6 and not enough omega-3, creating a pro-inflammatory body chemistry. The simple answer to this is just to add in supplemental omega-3 or significantly modify the diet to include more cold water fatty fish, such as sardines, anchovies, mackerel, herring, salmon, tuna, and other specific fish. However, there's a little more to it than just that. Just like hormones or even minerals, it's not just the ratio we're concerned about, but also the total amount. You can have a perfect ratio between omega-6 and omega-3 and still have too little. Conversely, you can supplement so much omega-3 in an effort to change inflammatory patterns in your body that you have an overabundance. There are some concerns with blood clotting, liver toxicity, and bleeding with too much omega-3, but it's less common to get to that point than it is to have too much omega-6. Taking amounts under 4 grams per day is generally safe, but obviously a holistic view at symptoms and conditions related to the fatty acid profile is important in getting a comprehensive clinical picture. And the only way to truly know where you're at is to do a test. Using the particular test I describe in this video is similar to testing hemoglobin A1C, if you're familiar with that. HA1C tests for the percent of glycation or oxidation of red blood cells from sugar. Since the blood cells expire and are replaced about every 90 days, we can use the HA1C test to calculate average blood glucose levels over a 3-month period. We typically retest at the end of that time frame to see maximum change. Similarly, fatty acids can be tested as percentages in red blood cell membranes, so the same idea applies. As a topic peripheral to this video, fasting insulin is a test often overlooked that can troubleshoot a developing diabetic problem even with normal hemoglobin A1C and average glucose. People with high fasting insulin levels typically have higher fat percentages in the body. And the reason I mention all of this here is that it's common in our society for people with high omega-6 to omega-3 ratios and low overall omega-3 indices to also have high body fat percentage and blood sugar handling problems. And the reason for this is because of dietary and lifestyle factors that are common to both. At this problem, you might be asking how this became such a problem for our society. Why in the world, in America, with all of our resources, have we developed such a problem? It's easy to blame people for just eating too much of all the wrong things, and certainly personal responsibility is a necessary starting point. But in defense of people, whole sectors of the food industry are insidiously dedicated to making products that are addictive with chemical additives that fly under the radar of serving size recommendations and fancy nomenclature. In other words, the majority of people have no earthly idea what's in their food. This imbalance that seems to be programmed into the American lifestyle has happened for agricultural, economic, political, and dietary reasons. But we're just going to take one example that we as individuals have power over. A typical commercially raised cow in the US has a fatty acid ratio between 15:1 and 20:1, which means that the cow is not healthy and it's being fed an inflammatory diet. Cows prefer organic pasture plants such as grasses, alfalfa, clover, and legumes, but they're largely fed a diet of grain throughout their life, which skews their fatty acid profile more towards omega-6. Those ratios are 10 to 20 times higher than they should be. Eating commercial beef imparts that bad fatty acid ratio to us as well. Chicken has about the same 10x ratio where the omega-6 predominates. So it should be no surprise that the average ratio in the US population is approximately 20:1, where it should be 1:1 and potentially up to 4:1. So you can see why people like me use the acronym SAD, or SAD, for the standard American diet. Coupled with the animal products with skewed ratios, we also eat a lot of omega-6 rich seed oils such as corn, safflower, sunflower, soybean, and cottonseed. This has been heavily influenced by agriculture, medicine, and powerful lobbies with business interests that want to maximize profit margins. And the mass production of these oils to make them cheaper occurs with extraction with petroleum-based hexane solvents. bleaching because they come out looking horrible, and high pressure and temperature. The process results in oils that are oxidized or rancid as they reach the shelves in the grocery store. Yes, omega-6 fatty acids that we get from these oils are essential, but we have too much, and the inflammatory aspect is enhanced by the way they're produced. As an aside, in cooking, you never want to heat your oils past the smoke point because it lowers the quality of the oil, creates trans fatty acids, which even the government has come out and said there's no safe amount of trans fats, and it creates free radicals, increasing the carcinogenic activity. It also imparts a bitter or burnt flavor to your food. And some people may enjoy that taste, but it's all bad all the way around. If your butter or any other fat smokes in the pan, throw it away, clean the pan, turn the temperature down a bit, and start over. Similarly, cooking oils are best when they're organic, cold-pressed, non-GMO. So we have several important factors here. Firstly, the source of the oil. Its innate fatty acid profile, the production and processing of that oil, how it's utilized in cooking, either at home or in restaurants, and I know everybody goes to a lot of restaurants these days, and finally, your overall fatty acid result in the blood. These all help in making sure that you're not throwing a curveball to your fatty acid profile. Obviously, the main thing that you can change about the meat you consume is to switch as much as possible to grass-fed and free-range sources, which are definitely healthier and a way to get more omega-3s into your diet. We just simply need to take a closer look and truly understand that we're eating what our food was fed and how it was treated and processed. Since we touched on GMO products, I want to give a special mention to canola right now. There's a lot of misinformation out there about this one. It's touted by the powers that be as a heart-healthy oil because of its fatty acid profile and a couple other factors, but it's widely accepted in scientific circles that it is, in fact, inflammatory. While it's about 60% oleic acid, which is an omega-9, similar to olive oil, and about a 2-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 in the remaining portion, and that sounds great on the surface, but its status as a genetically modified food and its heavy industrial processing make it much less desirable. In the UK and other places in the world, they use a non-GMO rapeseed oil. This might sound better, but the average fatty acid profile in the UK is hardly better than here. In America, rapeseed has mostly been genetically modified to be resistant to herbicides and pesticides to increase yields. And that should raise an eyebrow already because it's an indication that high amounts of chemical toxins are sprayed on these crops. It's only the genetically modified seed that's called canola, which stands for Canadian Oil Low Acid, canola for short. This unfortunately has become one of the most widely used oils in cooking. If you eat out at restaurants very much, you're probably getting a lot of this sort of oil in your food instead of other healthier oils like extra virgin olive oil. You don't have to use olive oil for everything, but make an effort to find oils that are extra virgin, cold-pressed, organic, and non-GMO to cook with. Also, find a way to cook at lower temperatures where oils are concerned to make sure you're not creating trans fats and oxidation. Getting more omega-3 is really not that difficult. The three main fatty acids in this category are ALA, EPA, and DHA. ALA comes only from plant-based sources, such as flaxseed, chia, walnuts, tofu, and other soy products. The issue with trying to compensate for high omega-6 levels with ALA is that it converts very poorly and unpredictably in the body to the other two omega-3s, the EPA and DHA. So you may end up short-handed on your omega-3s if you rely solely on a vegetarian diet with no fish. The caveat here, and I hope if you already know this, if you're a vegan, the only plant source of EPA and DHA is from seaweed and algae. Interestingly, this is where the fish get it to start with, and they eat the marine plants which have the omega-3 fatty acids, and then we eat the fish. So if you're a strict vegan or vegetarian, you probably need to look into supplementing with seaweed or algal oils to make sure you're getting enough. Brain health, and especially development of the brain in childhood, are dependent on adequate amounts of EPA and DHA. Cold water fatty fish, such as anchovies, sardines, mackerel, herring, and certain types of tuna and salmon are very high in these, but not so much other fish like mahi-mahi, cod, catfish, and orange roughy. The test that I'm going to talk about in a second has an extensive list of ocean fish that comes with the report and your results. This takes the guesswork out of knowing what to eat to get higher amounts of EPA and DHA because they rank the fish species and their relative amounts of these fatty acids in the report. One thing I noted immediately was that bluefin tuna is close to the top of the list, having 1,279 milligrams of combined EPA and DHA per 3 ounces of fish. But yellowfin tuna is on the lower end of the list at only 237 milligrams. So if you're in dire straits with your fatty acid and really trying to get them more balanced, these details can make a difference, and they're easy to come by. There are several different tests out there, but one of the easiest and most convenient is the Omega-3 Index Plus from OmegaQuant Laboratory. Everything you need is in the kit, and all it requires is 1 drop of blood on the test paper. Essentially, this is the way it looks. It comes with this clamshell, and this is put out by OmegaQuant, and this particular one in conjunction with a favorite nutrition company of mine, Standard Process. It comes with bandages, 2 lancets, instructions, and the test paper right here. So you just take the lancet, you push it in until it clicks on the end of your finger and express enough blood to cover only the middle circle on the paper, which is saturated with a preservative. There are some other important instructions to make sure you get the best result possible, but it's all very easy. You're done in basically a minute, and then you send it in, wait for a few days for a color-coded report with easy-to-read graphs and interpretation with action steps. This particular test panel costs around $80, and it tells us several things. First, the omega-3 index shows what percentage of omega-3 fatty acids out of all the fatty acids in your red blood cell membranes. It then shows your ratio of total omega-3, omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids. It also gives a reading on arachidonic acid to EPA. And EPA, we've already said, is one of the omega-3s. Arachidonic acid is a specific omega-6, which is a central regulator of the inflammatory response. So the arachidonic acid to EPA is simply a more refined look at the potential for inflammation. And finally, it tests your percentage of trans fatty acids, which you want to be as close to 0 as possible. The reason trans fatty acids are so bad is that they have an altered chemical structure due to partial hydrogenation. When they're ingested, they're assimilated into our cell membranes, which damages their function. And although the addition of industrial trans fats is prohibited, small amounts are still created with heating and especially frying. So think of all those French fries you've eaten all over the years. And even though we can't avoid 100% of naturally occurring trans fats, it's possible to repair the problem in the body with better food choices. So this certainly isn't an exhaustive look at this huge topic, but it's enough for you to get started on your journey towards better health. So I hope you drop me a comment or question if you need more information, or if you have questions for other topics you'd like to know more about. Also, let me know if you're interested in the test or a personal nutritional evaluation, and thank you for watching.